Ooh, this is new. Nice pick, Peter. Where are you? Wait, is this the right spot? Yes, no, maybe so. I'll just call him. Dustin glanced around the lot between the abandoned buildings, his eyes casually searching for his best friend Peter, half expecting him to jump out and startle him, when he finally picked up. "There you are! Took your sweet time," Peter said to his friend on the other end. "Where are you, dude?" "I'm here, or at least I think I'm here." "No, you're in the right spot. I see you. Look up." Dustin glanced around the rooftops, his eyes settling on the one with the highest roof. There, waving at the top, was Peter. "Your hat looks fucking stupid, by the way." Dustin threw a bird in his direction before continuing. "So what's up, man? What's the game plan for today?" he asked while shielding his eyes from the sun behind the silhouette of Peter. "Check this shit, dude. Might want to record this. Got a new trick I want to show you." Without hesitation, Dustin flipped the phone sideways, pressed the red button, and began recording. He was used to this. Their favorite pastime was freerunning, and they were always recording clips and videos, some going viral, some barely even scraping 10 views. So, they were both always on standby with their phones, ready to get the next good shot. "You recording?" "Yep." Dustin watched his friend step up onto the edge of the building and carefully began walking along its length, before becoming suddenly wobbly and throwing his hands up into the air as if to balance. "Oh no!" Peter began to yell dramatically, clearly faking it through great over-exaggeration. "I'm losing my balance! Whatever am I to do? Geez, I hope I don't fall!" Dustin knew better than to believe his friend would make such a mistake. Even if the drama wasn't there, he knew Peter was one of the most sure-footed freerunners he'd ever met. At least that's what he thought. Dustin didn't even make a noise, just felt his heart stop when Peter went over the edge. Panic filled him as he watched in horror his friend plummet to the earth and... land? Feet first? The teenage boy stood there, stunned and speechless, watched as his friend casually walked over to him. "Did you get it?" Peter asked as if he hadn't just fallen over 100 feet without a scratch on him. Dude," Dustin stammered, trying to articulate the thoughts swimming through his head and lay them out in a functioning sentence, but failing spectacularly. "Here, let me see." Peter yanked the phone out of his companion's limp fingers and played the video back, while Dustin continued to stare in awe. "Aw, dude, you missed the best part. We gotta try that again." "What the hell, man?" the speechless teen finally managed to spit out. "What? What do you mean, what? What the hell was that?" Peter snorted at his response and then pointed down at his feet. "Huh, yeah. When I was in Oregon visiting my uncle, I bought a pair of these badass shoes from the store that let me fall from any height without getting hurt. It's like a video game, dude. Like no fall damage. Pretty badass. Although it did cost me like $800. That was like everything in my savings my dad helped me with. He's gonna be pissed when he finds out. Still have no clue how I'm gonna explain that one. Worth it, though. Think of how much this is gonna help us going forward. Won't ever have to worry about falling again." Peter acted so natural, calm, as if what he said was a completely normal thing that shouldn't be questioned. But Dustin wasn't going to accept that answer. Yet. Why would he? His friend was obviously fucking with him, right? But, dude, wait, like, what? So Peter explained his story with a little more clarity this time. While he was out of town, he went for a drive while his family gathered around for the big game, leaving mainly due to how loud and obnoxious they got during game day, and just simply didn't want to have to listen to that. So, since he had just gotten his license, he asked to borrow his mom's van and began driving up and down the roads, with no real destination, just exploring, looking for new places to practice his passion project in. Most of the abandoned buildings either looked too unstable or they were blocked off with a chain link fence and a big sign that read "No Trespassing." Normally, this wouldn't deter the teen, but since he was in his mother's van, he didn't want to get her in trouble somehow, or leave the vehicle out of sight for anyone to vandalize. After all, Portland does have a high rate of property-related crime. Before he knew it, Peter had driven up the street into a nice neighborhood. Every house around him was immaculately maintained, and each holding a color palette and design that complemented the rest. That is, until he glanced to his right and had to do a triple take. The house to his right stood out against the rest, indigo colored and oddly built with an old touch that didn't quite fit in with its surroundings. For some unknown reason, Peter found himself tapping the brakes, put the van in park, turned the key, and stepped out of the vehicle. He walked up to the door and just walked inside. No one told him he could. He just did. And now found himself standing in the middle of what looked to be a shop of some kind, despite the exterior resembling a house. A strange man appeared, dressed just as oddly as the appearance of the house he occupied, and they got to chatting. By the end of the hour, Peter left the place with a pair of shoes that the owner claimed could negate any damage done to the one who wore the shoes while falling from any height. When the teen was told this information, he obviously doubted it, until the owner demonstrated its abilities by leaping from his own roof. Much to Peter's shock, the older man landed, not just elegantly, but on one foot, as if the impact itself also didn't even matter. Even still, the teenage boy was hesitant about making such a purchase, until the owner, who called himself the collector, told him if he wasn't satisfied with his purchase, he could always return it. So Peter figured, what the hell? Peter spent the entire rest of the trip testing the shoes out. He started off simple, leaping from his uncle's roof at night when everyone was asleep, which took the boy several attempts as he pushed himself through hesitation, and when he finally did so, he was stunned at the results, at how easy it was, that it actually worked. He then wanted to test it from a higher point, so he climbed the tree that curled and rose over his uncle's house, the same one he had climbed so many times before in his younger days, and was now clinging at its highest point, higher than he had ever climbed before. As he was working up the courage to take that step, the branch he held broke and sent the teen plummeting to the ground below, clipping the side of the house face first before smacking into the concrete walkway below. And yet, while he had felt the fear and had the natural thought of, oh shit, as he was falling, Peter stood instantly. Not a single scratch on him. No blood. No broken bones. Nothing. He was totally fine. He then saw the lights of the guest bedroom his parents were staying in flick on at the sound of him crashing to the ground, and his dad peeked out the window. Oh shit, Peter thought, and he knew he wouldn't be able to make it inside in time before his dad was already out the back door. He found his son sitting in the chair, claiming to be stargazing after having trouble falling asleep, and blamed the noise on a raccoon that fell out of the tree. Go to bed. We have a long day tomorrow, his dad told him. And Peter did as he was told. Or tried to. Every time he started to drift to sleep, he would find himself jumping at the phantom sensation of falling. But eventually, sleep would find him. Okay. You recording? Peter asked his friend and turned to face the gap he was about to jump. I got you, dude, Dustin replied. Peter took a couple of deep breaths, began bouncing slightly on the soles of his feet as he readied himself, took off running, and right as he reached the edge, slipped on a loose tile and tumbled over with the squeaky shit that escaped his lips. Shit! Dustin couldn't hold in the laughter at his friend's reaction. That was a cute noise you did there, he shouted down to his friend. You sounded like you did before you went through puberty. I guess your balls weren't the only thing that dropped today. Congratulations, welcome to manhood. Laugh all you want, man. You're up next, Peter shouted back up at his friend while still sprawled out on the ground below. And yes, now it was Dustin's turn to go. When Peter climbed the pipe back up to the roof, he removed his shoes, handed them over to his friend, and once fitted snugly on his feet, wandered over to the edge and stared over at the 40-foot drop below him. While normally, the rush he felt from pulling off the perfect stunt from high up gave him a natural adrenaline rush, Dustin found himself hesitant. It was natural to feel fear from heights, the vertigo. It's what kept people alive and from making foolish mistakes. But in this case, a mistake wouldn't cost a thing. Dude, I don't know now. I've never jumped a gap this far. or this high. Dustin confided in his friend who stood next to him. What if I miss? Then you'll fall, Peter responded with a shrug. Then we can just try again. It's still nerve-wracking, you know what I mean? Yeah, that oh shit feeling still doesn't go away. Maybe you should just get used to the sensation of falling first. Yeah, maybe. Dustin continued to stare over the edge, clearly trying to ready himself to step off, even dangling his foot over for a moment before pulling it back. I can't do it, man. I'm freaking out. Would it help if I don't know, pushed you? Maybe. And so Peter pushed his friend off the building, who made no sound until he hit the ground below. Have a nice trip there, Peter shouted down to Dustin. I guess I'll see you next fall. Fuck you, dude. You'll be all right. The two friends spent the next few days practicing their free running from bottom to top of the abandoned playground they claimed for their own, exploring new paths they wouldn't normally have taken and performing new tricks they would otherwise never have attempted. They never had a thing to worry about. No matter how badly they messed up, they were never dealt with the consequences of their actions. No matter how much they defied gravity, no wound would ever mark their skin. No bone would ever split, or crack, or break. Hell, Dustin messed up badly at one point and fell the entire length of the building, smacking back and forth off the old brick, metal staircase, and AC units running up the side like a pinball machine. Peter could not stop laughing as he played the footage of it over and over again, shoving the camera into his friend's face to watch his legendary fail, much to his annoyance. When the sun began to set, the two of them dangled their feet over the edge of the tallest building while they munched on the food they had delivered to the abandoned lot. Out of sight, of course, Peter performed a swan dive from the back of the roof and then walked around the corner, greeted the driver, and gave him a good tip for his trouble. You're like straight up Peter Pan now, I swear, man, Dustin told Peter when he reached the top and settled next to his friend. Well, yeah, except not at all, because that's stupid, and instead of flying, I just fall like a rock. They both laughed and continued their meal, watching the last light finally dip below the horizon and color the world with a vibrant pink. Well, I guess we should head home now, Dustin told his friend with a stretch. Oh, man. I'm fucking exhausted, dude. Yeah, good idea. Hey, let me wear those shoes so I can get down quicker. My legs are killing me. Well, mine are too. Why do you get to wear them? 'Cause I paid $800 for them. Yeah, that's fair. Dustin quickly removed the plain gray shoes that held magical powers from his feet and handed them over to their owner, who slipped them on over his dirty socks. They on tight now? Yep. Good. And with that, Dustin slapped his friend on the back and sent him on an express trip to the ground below. Dick! Was all Peter was able to get out before he tumbled over. Over the next year, they continued their usual routine, and through their now painless practice, their skills had far exceeded what they used to be. Their freerunning channel now had millions of views and hundreds of thousands of subscribers. So much so, in fact, that they were beginning to get recognized when they went into town, and were even beginning to take pictures and sign autographs. Dustin definitely seemed to enjoy the fame a bit more than Peter did, for it was his camera work that really sealed the deal. Still, Peter was always very polite with his fans. They began to get more and more recommendations in their posts and comments saying, "You should try this place," or "Can't wait to see you climb the Eiffel Tower," or "If you guys happen to skip across the pond, I can show you some of the most badass spots that you could never find in America." Always about buildings higher than any they had ever climbed. These comments began to give Peter an idea, one he had somehow never thought of before. Unlike Dustin, who never got over that snap fear of falling, Peter now began to find a certain joy in it. Not like an adrenaline rush. No, this was something else. Like a peace, serenity he could not quite explain. And so one day, he decided he wanted to feel it at its peak, at its height. No pun intended. First, though, Peter and Dustin had to prove to the skydiving instructor that it could be done. This was the first person they had ever told their secret to, but they did so the instructor didn't get in trouble and lose his job. Someone jumping out of a plane without a parachute, well, non-threatening in this case, was still considered a big no-no in the world of skydiving. His reaction was similar to Dustin's, but laced with the word fuck over and over. They paid him quadruple the amount of a normal run with some of the funds they made from their channel, and even went a step further to make sure the flight was empty, save for them and the pilot. The instructor pretended to clip him in for the tandem jump, but secretly jumped solo, while Peter fell away from him alone in the whipping wind. The rush from that wind and the height of the jump pulled forth from Peter a feeling of bliss he had never experienced before. The falling man closed his eyes and smiled wide as he fell and fell, oblivious to the instructor who occasionally drifted near him to film the private drop for him as they plummeted to the earth below. There was not a single thought racing through Peter's head as he tumbled back and forth, surrendering to the currents of the sky. Falling. Falling. He opened his eyes and looked around at the world of white climbing past him, and then down at the ground rushing up to meet him. His joy suddenly morphed into something else, and a goofy grin spread across his face. Cannonball!